Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight on our news.
The acting parliamentary commissioner said the next few hours for his department will be interesting. The story coming up.
Free National Movement Chairman Sidney Colley weighs in on that new acting parliamentary commissioner. That story straight ahead.
The Foreign Affairs Minister responds to former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram. That story is coming up tonight, straight ahead.
Plus, election observers call on the Christie cabinet.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. I'm Christina McNeil. Topping news tonight, less than 48 hours before tens of thousands of voters head to the polls, the newly appointed acting parliamentary commissioner admits there may be one or two minor errors relating to dates of birth on the voter register. In an interview with our news this afternoon, Charles Aubrey defended former parliamentary commissioner Sherlyn Hall and said once all goes as planned, Wednesday's election process should go smoothly. Kyle Joaquin reports.
The acting parliamentary commissioner said over the next few hours his department will be in the process of locking down everything that needs to be in place in terms of NASA. He said the Family Islands are covered and things seem to be on the right track for a smooth and fair election process come May 10th.
Questions still linger over the voter register and whether it has been cleaned up of errors like wrong dates of birth and duplicated names. Well, acting parliamentary commissioner Charles Aubrey admits that there may still be a few errors, but he called them minor.
Well, I think to that extent, in terms of the multiple, or rather the
People being registered.
double register, yes. I think that would have been cleaned up. Now, we may have one or two, not one or two, you might find some errors in data entry as it relates to maybe day of the month of someone's birthday or something like that, or a misspelling of someone's name. But that does not exclude them from having the right to vote for that type of an error.
Aubrey said he's been working since he was appointed Friday evening. And with the countdown on to Wednesday's general election, the acting parliamentary commissioner said he and his team are in the process of ironing out all the kinks.
Beginning this evening, we basically will be getting ready to do the final things we need to do for New Providence between tonight, this evening, early tomorrow. Hopefully by midday, 5 o'clock tomorrow, we should be able to relax and just wait for 8 a.m. on Wednesday.
Former parliamentary commissioner Sherlyn Hall has faced heavy backlash following last year's gender equality referendum, as well as last week's chaotic advance poll. But Aubrey confirmed that Hall will still be on board as a consultant for Wednesday's election and reported for work today. We asked him if he feels the criticisms Hall received were justified.
Well, Mr. Hall is a public servant with over 40 years of experience. He's been in this department since 1998. And so he has a wealth of experience in parliamentary registration department procedures. And so I think we could assume that he knows what to do and how to do what needs to be done in this department.
Polls open at 8 a.m. on Wednesday, and after what occurred during last Wednesday's advance poll, Aubrey made it clear who's responsible for what.
Once the election starts, it's really the returning officer who's responsible for each constituency and the presiding officer who's responsible for the individual polling places who are responsible for the conduct of the election in that polling place.
For our news, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Well, Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell says the government is confident that acting parliamentary commissioner Charles Aubrey is capable of overseeing a smooth election process.
I can speak to what I've been advised. The minister told the observers that he has been retained in a consulting role and that he will be available to provide advice to the current commissioner. The current commissioner, of course, is himself very experienced in this. This is not his first election, and he's, acted in a kind of non-named deputy position in any event. So
the government is confident in his ability to carry on this so close to being appointed.
I think so. I think he has the ability, he has the experience, and I'm sure that there may be little hiccups, as there always are with these things, but generally speaking, there'll be a credible process for this election.
Although Hall has been replaced, Free National Movement Chairman Sidney Colley says the party is still not convinced the general election will be free and fair. Colley insists replacing the man at the top does nothing to correct the myriad issues plaguing the department. Jasmine Brown has that story.
Colley says despite there being a new acting parliamentary commissioner, he's not sure there'll be a flawless election on Wednesday.
It's a change of personnel, and for a systemic problem, I'm not so sure changing one for another is going to address the deep-rooted issues. And so it is what it is for May 10th. We are going to have to make the best of it.
Last week, the Free National Movement expressed grave concerns following the disastrous advanced poll. At the time, the FNM placed much of the blame on former Parliamentary Commissioner Sherlyn Hall, whose contract ended that day. Colley said the FNM recognizes the Parliamentary Commissioner was out of his depth. Today, he did an about-face insisting Hall could not shoulder all the blame.
My position has always been Mr. Hall was not properly resourced. He did not have the resources, the financial or the human resources, or the required training and experience of his staff. This all is just a figurehead. That's why I call it a systemic problem.
Colley denied flip-flopping on the issue, saying at the end of the day it will take legislation to clean up the department. As for acting Parliamentary Commissioner Charles Albury, Colley says they met briefly on Monday morning and another meeting is set for Tuesday.
I'm very interested to see and to hear what the new Parliamentary Commissioner, I think his name is Mr. Roberts, not Roberts, I forget his name, the new Parliamentary Commissioner. I'm very interested to hear what he's going to say to us tomorrow and what kind of assurances he's going to give us.
Colley says he hopes to get the answers they need during that meeting. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Electoral observers from the United States, Commonwealth countries, CARICOM nations, and the Organization of American States today meeting with Prime Minister Perry Christie and members of his cabinet ahead of Wednesday's election, which government officials hope will be both free and fair.
We are free and open democracy and have nothing to hide, and we want to be sure that our electoral processes stand up to best practices around the world.
We fiercely and jealously guard our democracy. We have demonstrated now on a number of occasions the capacity to change and to change peacefully. We take pride in the fact that we participate vigorously in our election.
This is the second general election the Bahamas has invited international delegations to observe. Prime Minister Perry Christie says no matter the outcome on Wednesday, he expects there to be a smooth transition of leadership.
Even if I were to form a new government, it'll be a transition. But most certainly, we expect our democracy to respond positively and strongly as it has always done.
OAS observers are expected to evaluate government's response to recommendations made during their first electoral observation mission for the 2012 general election. Among them, the adoption of a legal framework for political party and campaign finances and the creation of an independent boundaries commission. Each electoral mission is expected to compile a preliminary report, which will be available shortly after the general election, to be followed by comprehensive reports to be presented at a later date. Observers say they are impressed with the Bahamas' long-standing history of democracy and voter participation.
Today, teams from the United States Embassy will be deployed across New Providence and also in Grand Bahama and Eleuthera to observe the exercise of the right to vote by Bahamian citizens. And in advance, the one thing I would like to mention is the high voter turnout in the Bahamas, which consistently has been over 90%, is something the United States can only hope to aspire to.
We are very upbeat and positive about the atmosphere prevailing ahead of the elections that are going to take place on the 10th of May. We certainly, from everything that we have seen so far, believe that this is a very engaged electorate looking forward to cast their vote and to express their will on the elections of the 10th of May.
At the end of the elections, we will have some observations that we will certainly share with the public, and we will have a report where recommendations will be made later on.
Well, Foreign Affairs Minister and Fox Hill MP Fred Mitchell is condemning the Free National Movement over its decision to bring back former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham on the campaign trail. Mitchell called it a strategic mistake. Giorgio Bain reports.
Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell is accusing former Prime Minister Hubert Ingraham of threatening to end employment in some government sectors if the Free National Movement is successful in the upcoming general election. In a statement, Mitchell condemned Ingraham and the FNM for comments made at the party's mass rally last week that from the hill to the valley, they are all gone.
I think that it was a strategic mistake bringing him back to the platform. The man who's no longer the leader of the FNM, the former Prime Minister, suddenly appears on a platform and says that something about change is coming and from the hill to the valley. I don't know how else you're supposed to interpret that, but as a threat that what previously happened in 2007 when they came to office is going to take place, where people were dismissed who were public servants from a public platform.
Mitchell said it is embarrassing for the former Prime Minister to come back into the fray and threaten the Governor General's post. Mitchell says for Ingraham to take a swing at the Governor General shows a total lack of respect.
Hill, there's only one hill if you're talking about change, that's Government Hill. So you are now attacking someone who can't defend themselves because in a politically neutral position. It appears to have been engendered by bitterness because her husband fired him way back in 1983. This is something you just need to get over and move on.
Mitchell says he is concerned about policy issues surrounding job initiatives in the public service started under the Progressive Liberal Party. According to Mitchell, in July, the Prime Minister announced that 3,500 persons would transition from temporary employment to permanent and pensionable. These are the areas Mitchell feels will be attacked by the FNM.
Mr. Christie announced in July that these people would be moving on to the permanent and pensionable. It's taking some time to get done because of the bureaucracy, but it's being done. And then you have the empowerment program, which hired some 300 to 400 people who may not have had the requisite qualifications, but went through a period of some training and then have been placed in various offices.
Reporting for our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
Still to come on our News, the DNA leader slams attempts to undermine his party. That and more when our News returns.